Hello. Hey, loves. Welcome back. I'm Valerie Roberts. I'm here today to talk about sin. So, this question comes from a young lady who is being brought up in a traditional Southern religious denomination. Just getting my Palo Santo going here. And her question stems from a constant nagging anxiety and concern that what she says, thinks, or does creates sin. And she has a fear that this production of sin is going to cause her to, go to hell or live in purgatory. So this is a massively enormous misconception about sin. I can identify with this hugely because when I was growing up, I was also raised in some traditional denominations. My parents weren't ultra loyal to a specific denomination, but we were members of different churches as I was growing up. Methodist, Baptist, Pentecostal, etc. And I also remember as a little girl having this heavy, heavy burden of being flawed, feeling flawed, damaged goods, not good enough, unworthy, imperfect, problematic. And I can remember laying in my bed at night and pulling the covers up over myself and saying my prayers. We had the Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep prayer. And I would say my prayer faithfully every single night. And I would bless everybody that I could think of by name. And I would just say, I would beg, God, please, please let them go to heaven. And please let me go to heaven too. I'm so sorry for all of my sin. And it took me about 40 years to recognize that this was faulty thinking. And for one reason, the definition of sin, what sin means is to miss the mark or to suffer or cause suffering for others. And sin is not a consequence. And sin does not create a consequence of a life of hell in and of itself. But sin is suffering. Sin is when we create a circumstance that causes suffering for ourselves or that causes suffering for others. And it's a reminder to reevaluate what we're doing, what our motive is, and to ask ourselves, what is my intention here? What is my intention? My daughter gave me a nice example this week of being in class at school, and there was a game going on between two teams in the class, and the teacher accidentally gave the wrong team a point. And one of the little girls in the room recognized it and mentioned it to my daughter, and my daughter's like, all right. And the other little girl, I shouldn't say little girl, these are ladies, young ladies. The other young lady was like, no. We have to tell him. I'm not going to go to hell for this. I'm not going to sin for this. This is too small. And, my daughter wanted to have a conversation about that, which I'm really grateful that she feels like she could have that conversation with me, because what a great segue into having this conversation with her. But there's this misconception that suffering is wrong and causes this consequence of dying and then going to this place that is a hell, burning and misery and etc. And the hell is the experience that the young lady was having in her suffering. The suffering is the hell. The fear, anything that drops us down into those negative emotions of fear anxiety, grief, guilt, shame, that is the suffering. That is the consequence. Now, in that example, what's the right thing to do? Should the girls have immediately gone to the teacher and said, "You gave the wrong point"? Well, let's talk about that a little bit. First of all, it's a game. It's a fun, non-consequential activity in a class to pass some time. And so, frankly, there's probably not a lot of weight on whether or not they tell the teacher about this point. Let's be honest, this isn't like some kind of vacuum closed scientific experiment where these things really matter. And relatively, there is really no right or wrong, because the teacher could have been doing lots of things wrong during this game. The other students could have been doing lots of things wrong during this game. They could have been cheating. The teacher could have been misgiving points left and right. Who knows? The research that the questions were pulled from could have been erroneous. I mean, it wasn't a perfect system. However, if the weight of misleading a person made this young lady feel a heartbreak, a sense of unloyalty or injustice or lack of integrity, if it burdened her heart, then that is her sign that she should clarify the situation and let the teacher know, you messed up the point there, because she recognized it in that moment and she wanted to be a person of integrity and she wanted to do good in the world and share love in the world. So if the compass is this emanating love? Is what I'm doing emanating love? Is what I'm doing expanding creation in a positive way? Is what I'm doing free from harm upon the planet or other people or animals or creation? If what you're doing is in love, and if you're in joy, and if what you're doing is free from causing harm to the planet or animals or people, if it is the path of least resistance, and if you are filled with a positive intention of love and right doing and integrity, then sin can be the furthest thing from your mind. It is not my personal belief that when we die, that there is an afterlife of pain and suffering for anyone. It is my personal belief that when we die, energetically we become one with Christ consciousness again. We become one with God. So that's another conversation. But if I baked a cake right now and we call that cake God, and I cut a piece of that cake, that's still God, right? So if I come from God, I'm still part of God. And when my spirit recognizes the end of this human existence and I go back to where I came from, I'm going back to God. There's not an alternative place for me to go. Now, if I come back into my conscience again in another life, my Christ consciousness, myself, my soul, may select a more hell-like reality in order to learn lessons based on the interactions, karma, and experiences that I had here. If I wronged someone here, I may choose to come back and be wronged in that same way to learn that emotional experience as it happened to me, as I inflicted it upon another. But I don't believe that I'm going to go into a burning pit of fire with a man stabbing me with a pitchfork unless I choose that as my reality. And having said that, I do believe that we can create any reality. So if you're living in a reality now that feels like you are being punished for this series of events that you would recognize as sin in this life, and it is causing your life to become harder and harder, then I would suggest that you evaluate your intentions in your actions and really focus on spending time in your heart center. We can practice that here now, and just connecting with yourself to understand who you are, what you're here for, what experiences you intended to come to have, what agreements you made with others to interact with them in this life, and that you explore what if your life up to this moment was a book, and you could select to close that book or that chapter, let's say, right now, and set it aside and begin writing a brand new story, brand new chapter in your story, what would that chapter be? What would your intention be for your life in that chapter? What would you want to happen? Forgetting everything that happened before, having complete amnesia over everything from the past, not counting sin or suffering from the past wrongdoings that you had done upon yourself or that you did unto others, not counting that. If you had a blank slate from this very moment and you recognized your Christ consciousness, your collective connectedness to all knowing, and you have the talents, the skills, the understandings of the world that you have right now, what could you do? What would you do? How would you benefit others? What would your intentions be? How much more enjoyment would you get out of every moment beyond this one if you knew what you knew now and everything was left behind? You had a blank, clean slate and you could start over. Like you just spent 30 years in prison and you bonked your head and forgot everything you knew, and they released you and you have a blank slate, but you're a hell of a guitar player, or you're a phenomenal speaker, or you have a deep connection with Source and you're able to share that with others. What would you do now? That's the question. So from here on out, if you can think of sin as simply recognizing that place of suffering and questioning your own intentions and what you want to create in your expansive creative ability, what would you do? Let's just take a moment. Let's just take a moment to breathe. So I'd like you to shut your eyes if you feel comfortable. If you're not, hopefully you're not driving. If you are, don't do that. But you can breathe with us. But if you're not driving or doing something that you can shut your eyes. And then just breathe deeply in your nose. Just again. If you can, imagine a sphere of light in your abdomen, and imagine that glowing ball of warm light just resting there and connecting you to everything that is beyond, everything that is greater than you. And breathe into that. Recognize your connectedness to that. And understand that you have the capacity to go there anytime, to ask any question of that place, not your mind, but of this place of higher knowing, of greater consciousness. And most of all, that you have the ability to come here and have a great sense of peace at any time you choose. And this can be that place where you come to set the slate blank. Before you move forward with intention. If you can do that for as little as 17 seconds a day, or 17 seconds at a time, you can wipe the slate clean, come to a place of peace and understanding, and start from that moment forward as if nothing had ever happened before. You can let go of everything from the past, and you can be fully present in this moment where you can look around and find infinite things to be joyful and happy and peaceful about. So I hope that helped. Let me know if you have any more questions related to that. You can let me know in the comments, or if you have a separate question, you can email me at askamira@gmail.com, and I would love to answer those questions here on our channel. Thanks. Have a great day.